The Evora's claws tore into young Timmy's throat, his human blood spraying the alien's reptilian hide. The brutal slaying of an innocent child on a remote human colony world was the greatest mistake the Evora scum would ever make, for killing the boy would awaken an all-consuming fury and vengeance in mankind that would burn the Evora to ash. Little Timmy, only 10, had been playing in the forest near his family's homestead on planet Arcadia. Timmy had no way of knowing that his human colony was considered an infestation by the Evora, a pestilence to be wiped out and harvested for resources. He couldn't have known a group of Evora raiders lurked nearby. Their leader was the dreaded Kelar, standing 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and scaly green flesh. Kelar was the most ruthless raider in the Evora ranks. He took glee in butchering any humans who crossed his path. When Kelar spotted the human child, laughing as he gathered sticks for a fort, the alien saw a chance for cruel sport. But Kelar, despite all his raids, all his massacres, didn't understand mankind. He didn't know the fury he would unleash. He snatched Timmy up, the boy screaming, and with one practiced slash opened his throat, casting the child's body aside like refuse. Timmy's father, John Morales, would stumble upon his boy just minutes later, falling to his knees, with an anguished scream at the sight no father should ever see. Tears streaked down the face of the hardened former Marine, a man who'd survived the brutality of the interstellar wars. John gathered his son's body with shaking hands, his blood-flecked face twisting with rage and grief. Far above the planet's surface, in the cold void of space, the Evora fleet hung in orbit. The alien ships bristled with devastating weapons that could incinerate human cities from orbit. For decades, the Evora had terrorized the galaxy, wiping out species after species, enslaving and slaughtering billions. Humanity was to be their next victim. On the flagship's bridge, the dreaded Admiral Zorgax planned the final push to exterminate mankind, confident no one could resist their might. The Evora's claws would rend and tear until the last human gasped their final breath. The Evora were certain of their superiority, assured that humanity would be brought to heel like all the others, but they did not yet know the depths of mankind's courage, the intensity of a father's love, or the burning crucible of humanity's vengeance. They could not imagine the hell they had just unleashed. John Morales stood over the freshly turned earth of his son's grave, his hands still caked with dirt from digging the small plot behind their homestead. The sun beat down on his neck as he stared at the rough wooden cross he'd lashed together. Timmy Morales, carved into its surface. Tears streamed down John's face, mixing with the sweat and grime. "I'll make them pay, son," he whispered, voice hoarse. "Every last one of those Evora bastards. They'll regret ever setting foot on Arcadia." That night, in the flickering light of a lamp, John sat at his kitchen table and pulled up his contacts on the cracked screen of an old tablet. His finger hovered over one name: Mike Gunner Johnson. John's old squad mate from the interstellar wars, a man he'd fought alongside in the trenches against the Krell. John himself had left the military behind, but he knew Gunner was still fighting, now as part of the human resistance against the Evora occupation. John hit the call button. The line crackled, and then a gruff voice came through. "This better be good." There was silence on the other end, then, "Fuck, John, I'm so sorry. Where are you?" "Still on Arcadia. I want to hit them back, Gunner, make them bleed. You still running ops with the Resistance?" "Damn straight. We've been planning a raid on an Evora supply depot, hitting those scaly fucks where it hurts. I could use a man of your skills. Rendezvous at these coordinates. We'll make them pay, John. For Timmy and for every human they've slaughtered." As John geared up and prepared to head out, a message pinged on his tablet. The sender was blocked, the text short. "The fate of humanity is at stake. Trust no one." John frowned. The coordinates were for a planet in Evora space, a place no human had ever gone. He was about to delete the message when something stopped him. Call it a gut feeling, but his instincts, honed by years of combat, told him this was no hoax. He tucked the coordinates away in his mind. First, the supply depot. Then, he'd take this to Gunner, see if he and some other Resistance vets would go with him to check it out. John couldn't shake the feeling that Timmy's death, as shattering as it was just a small part of a much larger war that was coming. A war that would decide the fate of the human race, once and for all. And he would be right there on the front lines. John's ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of the barren planet, its hull glowing red from the friction. Gunner gripped the controls, his cybernetic arm whirring as he guided them through the turbulence. The rest of the team, Ripper, Alex, and a few other resistance fighters, braced themselves in the cargo hold. As they descended, the planet's surface came into view. It was a desolate wasteland devoid of any signs of life. Jagged rocks and deep crevices scarred the landscape, and a thick layer of dust obscured the horizon. "It looks like a real shithole," Ripper muttered, peering out the viewport. John nodded grimly. Perfect place for the Evora to hide something. They landed near the coordinates provided in the mysterious message. The ship's ramp lowered, and the team stepped out onto the planet's surface. The air was thin and stale, and the ground crunched beneath their boots. "All right, let's move out," John ordered. "Keep your eyes peeled for any signs of that research facility." They trekked across the barren terrain, the sun beating down on them relentlessly. After an hour of searching, Alex called out, "Over here! I think I found something." The team rushed over to where Alex was standing. He pointed to a small, barely visible hatch hidden among the rocks. John and Gunner exchanged a glance before prying it open, revealing a dimly lit tunnel leading underground. They descended into the depths, weapons at the ready. The tunnel opened up into a vast underground complex, the Evora research facility. The walls were lined with advanced technology, and the air hummed with the sound of machinery. As they explored deeper, they came across a series of holding cells. Inside, they found the remains of human captives, their bodies bearing the marks of horrific experiments. John felt his stomach turn as he realized the true extent of the Evora's cruelty. In the last cell, they found a lone survivor, a young man barely alive. John rushed to his side, helping him sit up. "Alex," the man croaked, his voice hoarse from disuse. As Alex regained his strength, he revealed the horrors he had endured at the hands of the Evora scientists. They had subjected him to genetic modifications, enhancing his strength and resilience in an effort to perfect their biological weapon. "They're planning to wipe out humanity," Alex explained, his eyes haunted. "They have a secret base where they're mass-producing the weapon. We have to stop them." John clenched his fists, his anger boiling over. The Evora had taken his son, and now they threatened to destroy his entire species. He knew what he had to do. Back on the ship, John paced the cramped quarters, his mind racing. The Resistance had struck blows against the Evora before, but nothing on this scale. They needed help. He pulled up the comlink and hesitated for a moment before entering the code for the Earth Defense Force. The screen flickered to life, and the stern face of Admiral Sarah Thompson appeared. "Morales," she greeted, her tone clipped. "This is an unexpected call." "Admiral, I have information you need to see," John said, transferring the data they had gathered from the research facility. "The Evora are planning to eradicate humanity with a biological weapon. We have to act now." John leaned forward, his gaze intense. "We need the EDF's help. My team can infiltrate the base, but we need your forces to launch a coordinated attack. It's our only chance." Thompson nodded grimly. "You'll have our support, Morales. Send us the coordinates and we'll mobilize immediately." As the call ended, John turned to his team. They were battered and weary, but determination burned in their eyes. They knew the stakes, and they were ready to fight. "All right, listen up," John said, his voice steady. "This is it. The fate of humanity rests on our shoulders. We're going to infiltrate that base and blow their goddamn weapon to pieces. We'll take those alien bastards down, for Earth, for every human they've slaughtered, for Timmy." The team nodded solemnly, their resolve hardening. They began to prepare for the mission, checking weapons and going over the plan. Alex, his body enhanced by the Evora's experiments, would be a valuable asset. As they worked, John's thoughts turned to his son. Timmy's laughter echoed in his mind, a bittersweet memory that fueled his determination. He would make the Evora pay for what they had done. He would ensure that no other father would have to bury their child because of these monsters. The time had come to take the fight to the Evora, to strike back against the aliens who had terrorized humanity for too long. John and his team were ready. They would fight, and they would win, for the future of the human race. The thunder of war shook the ground as the combined might of the Earth Defense Force and the human resistance clashed against the Evora's fortified base. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, searing flesh and melting metal. Soldiers on both sides fell, their screams lost in the cacophony of battle. John and Alex used the chaos to their advantage, slipping past the front lines and into the heart of the enemy stronghold. They moved with purpose, their weapons at the ready, dispatching any Evora that dared to stand in their way. The corridors of the base were a labyrinth of death, each turn revealing new horrors. Genetically enhanced Evora soldiers, their bodies twisted and augmented, lunged at them with unnatural speed and strength. John and Alex fought back with a fury born of desperation, their skills honed by a lifetime of conflict. They pushed deeper into the facility, the air thick with the stench of blood and the hum of alien machinery. At last, they reached the central chamber, a cavernous space filled with rows upon rows of glowing tanks, each containing the deadly biological weapon. But before they could act, a figure emerged from the shadows. Keeler, his eyes blazing with hatred, stood before them, flanked by his elite guard. The Evora commander's body was a grotesque fusion of flesh and technology, his every movement a testament to his unnatural power. "You've come far, human," Keeler snarled, his voice dripping with contempt, "but your journey ends here." With a roar, he launched himself at John, his claws outstretched. John met him head-on, his combat knife flashing in the dim light. They clashed in a whirlwind of violence, neither giving an inch. Around them, Alex engaged the elite guard, his enhanced strength and speed a match for their own. He fought with a savage grace, his movements fluid and deadly. But even as he cut down one foe after another, a lucky shot found its mark, burning through his armor and into his flesh. Alex stumbled, his vision blurring. He gritted his teeth and fought on, determined to buy John the time he needed. John and Keeler's duel raged on, their bodies battered and bloody. John's rage and determination fueled his every blow, his mind filled with images of his fallen son. Keeler matched him strike for strike, his alien physiology granting him an edge. In a desperate gambit, John feinted left, then lunged right, his knife finding the gap in Keeler's armor. The blade sank deep, and the Evora commander howled in agony. But even as he fell, Keeler's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "You think this is the end?" he rasped, his voice thick with blood. "The weapon is just the beginning. The true mastermind behind our plans is someone you once trusted, someone who betrayed you." With his last breath, Keeler uttered a name that froze John's blood in his veins, a name he had never expected to hear. John staggered back, his mind reeling. He wanted to deny it, to believe that Keeler was lying. But deep down he knew it was the truth. There was no time to dwell on the revelation. Alex was wounded, and the weapon still needed to be destroyed. John set the charges, his hands shaking with a mixture of adrenaline and emotion. They fled the chamber as the explosives detonated, the force of the blast throwing them to the ground. Around them, the Evora base crumbled, the EDF forces pouring in to mop up the remaining resistance. In the aftermath of the battle, John and Alex were hailed as heroes, their actions saving countless human lives. But even as the celebrations raged around them, John couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gripped his heart. Planning. John's mind raced as he pored over the files and data recovered from the Evora base, searching for any clue that might lead him to the mastermind behind the aliens' genocidal plans. Keeler's dying words echoed in his thoughts, taunting him with the knowledge that someone he had trusted, someone he had fought alongside, had betrayed humanity. Days turned into weeks as John chased down every lead, every scrap of intel. He barely slept, his dreams haunted by visions of his son's lifeless body and the billions of lives hanging in the balance. And then, finally, a breakthrough. A hidden transmission, buried deep within the Evora's communication network, pointed to a remote, uncharted planet on the fringes of known space. John gathered his team, a grim determination etched on his face as they boarded their ship and set course for the mysterious world. As they approached the planet, John's scanners detected a massive energy signature emanating from beneath the surface. He guided the ship down, the hull shuddering as they passed through the turbulent atmosphere. They landed in a barren, rocky wasteland, the wind whipping dust and debris against the viewports. John led the way as they disembarked, his weapon held at the ready. They picked their way through the jagged terrain, following the energy readings deeper into a maze of canyons and crevasses. And then, nestled in the heart of a towering cliff face, they found it. A hidden base, its entrance heavily fortified and bristling with advanced Evora technology. John's heart pounded as they breached the outer defenses, alarms blaring and plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. They fought their way deeper into the facility, the corridors lit by eerie, pulsing lights and the hum of alien machinery. And then, in a cavernous chamber at the base's core, John came face to face with the betrayer. Admiral Sarah Thompson, her once proud EDF uniform now adorned with Evora insignia, stood before him, a cold smile on her lips. "I should have known," John growled, his grip tightening on his weapon. "How could you turn your back on humanity?" Thompson laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed off the chamber walls. "Don't be so naive, Morales. The Evora are the future. Humanity's only chance for survival is to serve them, to become part of their grand design." She began to pace, her eyes gleaming with a fanatic light. The biological weapon was just the beginning, a way to cull the weak, the unworthy, and leave only the strong to take their rightful place as the Evora's loyal subjects. "I will be the one to usher in a new era, a new age of human evolution." John's mind reeled with the depths of Thompson's madness, his finger tightening on the trigger. But before he could act, the chamber erupted into chaos. Thompson's loyal EDF soldiers, now armed with Evora plasma rifles and exosuits, poured into the room, their weapons blazing. John dove for cover, his team scattering as they returned fire. The air burned with the stench of ozone and seared flesh, screams of pain and fury mingling with the deafening roar of the firefight. John fought with a savage intensity, his rage and betrayal fueling every shot, every movement. But Thompson's forces were too strong, their Evora-enhanced weaponry cutting through John's team like a scythe through wheat. One by one, his comrades fell, their blood staining the cold metal floor. John gritted his teeth, prepared to make his final stand. And then, like an avenging angel, Alex burst into the chamber, a contingent of resistance fighters at his back. His eyes blazed with righteous fury as he charged into the fray, his genetically enhanced body moving with a speed and grace that was almost inhuman. Together, John and Alex rallied their forces, their combined strength and determination turning the tide of the battle. They fought their way to Thompson, the corrupt admiral now cowering behind her rapidly dwindling defenses. "It's over, Thompson," John snarled, his voice cold as the void of space. "Your betrayal ends here." They took Thompson into custody, her once proud form now broken and shackled. As they marched her out of the base, John's mind raced with the implications of her treachery, the scope of the Evora's plans, the true extent of their power and influence. But even in defeat, Thompson's lips curled into a smile, a final taunting barb. "You may have stopped me, Morales, but you're too late. The Evora's command center, the heart of their empire. It's beyond your reach. And even now, their leaders are preparing for the final assault, the end of humanity as you know it." John's blood ran cold at her words, a leaden weight settling in his gut. He knew with a grim certainty that the fight was far from over, that the true battle for humanity's survival still lay ahead. As they boarded their ship, Thompson secured in the brig and the evidence of her betrayal logged and transmitted to the Resistance leadership, John felt a new sense of purpose settle over him, a clarity of focus, a singular drive to see this war through to the end. No matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice, he would find the Evora's command center. He would take the fight to the very heart of their empire, and he would not rest until humanity was safe, until the galaxy was free from the aliens' tyrannical grip. The future of his species hung in the balance, and John Morales would be the one to tip the scales, to lead the charge into the unknown, for Earth, for the Resistance, for the memory of his fallen son. The final battle was about to begin. John's mind raced as he considered the implications. An ally within the Evora ranks, a chance to strike at the heart of their empire and end this war once and for all. But could he trust this Zaxor? Were there truly Evora who desired peace, or was this just another trap? John's voice was steady as he activated the base's intercom. "Sergeant Reeves, report to the command center. We have a mission." Minutes later, Emily strode into the room, her pilot's helmet tucked under one arm. Her eyes widened as John briefed her on Zaxor's message and the plan to infiltrate the Evora command station. "You trust this defector, sir?" Her tone was skeptical, but there was a glint of hope in her eyes. "We have to take the chance," John said firmly. "Assemble a strike team, our best fighters. We leave at 600. The hours blurred as they prepared, checking weapons and running drills. John paced the hangar, watching as Emily prepped their ship, her hands flying over the controls with practiced ease. Then they were in the black, the stars stretching cold and infinite beyond the viewports. John's heart pounded as they approached the massive station, its hull bristling with weaponry. "Zaxor's codes are working," Emily reported, her voice tense. "We're through the outer defenses." The ship shuddered as it sliced through the containment field and into the hangar. Alarms blared, Evora soldiers already rushing to intercept them. John was first down the ramp, his rifle barking as he cut down the closest foes. His team fanned out behind him, plasma bolts sizzling past as they pushed forward into the station's gleaming corridors. The Evora fought with the desperate strength of cornered beasts, their eyes glowing with hate. John's muscles burned as he fought, blood pounding in his ears. One by one, his team fell around him, the air thick with screams and the stench of seared flesh. And then they were at the command room door, so close to their goal. But a shadow fell across them, and John looked up to see a monstrous shape blocking their path. It was an Evora war machine, all gleaming metal and whirring servos, its bulk filling the corridor. And there, visible through the transparent canopy, was Xerox, Kilar's second, his face twisted in a snarl. "You will go no further, human scum." Xerox's voice boomed from the machine's speakers. The war machine's guns swiveled to aim at John's chest, the barrels glowing with deadly charge. John barely had time to shout a warning before the guns fired. He threw himself aside, the salvo missing him by inches and blasting a hole in the bulkhead. His team scattered for cover, peppering the machine with plasma bolts that glanced off its armor. John rolled and came up firing, his shots sparking off the canopy. Beside him, Emily let loose with her rifle, the air shimmering with the heat of the blasts. The war machine lumbered forward, its metal fists smashing through walls as it charged at them. John and Emily dove aside, the machine's blows pulverizing the deck where they'd stood a heartbeat before. John circled, firing constantly, trying to find a weakness. Xerox was laughing now, the sound booming through the speakers, even as he swatted John's team aside like insects. Then Emily was there, a satchel charge in her hand. She sprinted forward, ducking under a swinging arm, and slapped the charge against the machine's leg joint before leaping clear. The explosion shook the corridor and the war machine stumbled, smoke pouring from the damaged joint. John aimed for the weak point and fired, his shots tearing through the exposed wiring. The machine convulsed, Xerox's laughter turning to a scream of rage. Then, with a final shudder, it toppled forward and lay still. John stumbled to Emily's side, his heart clenching as he saw the blood soaking her uniform. She'd been hit in the final moments of the battle, a jagged shard of metal buried in her side. Around them, the bodies of their fallen comrades littered the corridor, the price of their advance. John's chest heaved as he looked to the command room door, so close now. They had to finish this, for all those lost, for humanity's future. John gripped his rifle tighter, glancing down at Emily's ashen face. Her eyes fluttered open, hazy with pain, but she managed a weak smile. "Aye, sir, give 'em hell." John straightened, squaring his shoulders as he faced the command room. This was it, the moment he'd fought and bled for. The Evora leadership was just beyond that door, the fate of the galaxy in his hands. The command center shook with the force of an explosion, klaxons blaring as John leapt back into the fray. Admiral Kraxus, his face contorted with rage, lunged at John with a vibroblade. The metal flashed through the air, humming angrily. John twisted, the blade missing his throat by an inch. He smashed his rifle butt into Kraxus's face. The alien reeled back, black blood spraying from his shattered nose. John pressed the attack, pummeling Kraxus with a barrage of vicious blows. Kraxus lashed out, his blade scoring a gash across John's arm. Gritting his teeth against the pain, John drove his fist into Kraxus's throat, crushing the alien's windpipe. Kraxus staggered back, eyes bulging as he gasped for air. "It's over, Kraxus," John snarled. "Your rebellion is finished." John stepped closer, rifle leveled at the Admiral's chest. "What are you talking about?" A cruel smile twisted Kraxus's bloodied lips. "The weapon, the one you stole from us, it was never meant to kill your kind. It was meant to change you, to unlock the potential hidden in your genes." "The power to become something more than human," Kraxus said. "The Evora discovered it, the key to creating an army of enhanced soldiers. We sought to harness it, to use your own people as our ultimate weapon." John stared at the prototype device in his hand, realization dawning. It wasn't a weapon but a tool of transformation, a key to unlocking humanity's hidden genetic potential. Kraxus laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "You may have won this battle, human, but the war for the future has just begun." With a final defiant snarl, the Admiral slumped to the floor dead. John stood over the fallen Evora, his mind reeling from the implications of Kraxus's revelations. The fighting died down as word of Kraxus's defeat spread. Zaxor and the loyalist Evora laid down their arms, and a tentative truce was established. John met with Emperor Zorgax, the weight of their shared revelation hanging heavy between them. "The knowledge of humanity's potential changes everything," Zorgax said, his voice weary. "It will be seen as a threat by some, an opportunity by others. The balance of power in the galaxy will shift." John nodded, the prototype device feeling like a lead weight in his pocket. "We have to ensure that this knowledge is used wisely for the benefit of all. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." As John and his team prepared to return to Earth, Zaxor pulled him aside. "There will be challenges ahead, John Morales," the Evora said, "but I believe that you are the key to a brighter future for both our peoples. We will meet again." The journey home was long, giving John time to reflect on all that had happened. The war with the Evora was over, but a new struggle was just beginning. The secret of humanity's genetic potential was a powerful one, and John knew that there would be those who would stop at nothing to control it. Back on Earth, John was hailed as a hero, the man who had brought peace to the galaxy. But even as he stood before cheering crowds, John couldn't shake the feeling that his true mission was just beginning. Late one night, as John sat alone in his quarters, a knock sounded at the door. He opened it to find a hooded figure, their face hidden in shadow. "John Morales," the figure said, their voice low and urgent. "We must speak." John tensed, his hand drifting towards his sidearm. "Who are you?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a woman with piercing green eyes and a face lined with wisdom. "I'm a representative of the Guardians, a secret organization that has watched over humanity for centuries. We have been waiting for someone like you, John. Someone with the courage and vision to lead humanity into a new era." John's heart raced, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. "What do you want from me?" The woman smiled, her eyes glinting with purpose. "We want you to join us, John, to help shape the future of your species and take your rightful place among the stars. But it comes at a price. You must leave your old life behind. Dedicate yourself entirely to our cause. It will not be an easy path, but it is a necessary one." John stood there, torn between the pull of duty and the yearning for something more. To stay and rebuild the life he had known, or to step forward into the unknown, to embrace a destiny that could change the course of history. In that moment, with the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, John faced the most difficult decision of his life. John stood before the hooded figure, his heart racing as he weighed the enormity of the decision before him. The path the Guardians offered was one of sacrifice and uncertainty, a journey that would take him far from all he'd ever known. He thought of his son, of the promise he'd made to ensure that no other father would suffer as he had. He thought of the resistance, of the brave men and women who had fought and died by his side. In the end, it was their memory that steeled his resolve. John met the Guardian's gaze, his voice steady as he spoke. "I accept." The figure nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of their mouth. "Your journey begins now, John Morales. Come, there is much to learn." John followed the Guardian into a swirling vortex of light, his body tingling as it was transported across vast distances. When the light faded, he found himself standing in a vast chamber, its walls shimmering with an otherworldly energy. Before him stood a council of beings, their forms shifting and ethereal. They radiated power and wisdom, and John knew instinctively that these were the Guardians. "Welcome, John Morales," a voice echoed through the chamber. "You stand now in the Hall of Balance, the heart of our order." John's eyes widened as he took in the magnitude of his surroundings. The Guardians, he learned, were an ancient order, comprised of beings from across the galaxy who had transcended their physical forms to become something greater. The Evora's actions, while reprehensible, were merely a symptom of a greater imbalance, the voice continued, an imbalance that threatens to unravel the very fabric of the universe. John listened intently as the Guardians spoke of the Void, a malevolent entity that sought to consume all life, all light. They had been fighting against its influence for eons, but now they believed that John's unique combination of human spirit and Evora genetic enhancements made him the key to turning the tide. "Your training begins now," the voice said. "You will learn to wield the power within you to become a champion of balance and a guardian of life." John nodded, his resolve hardening. He would do whatever it took to protect the galaxy, to honor those he had lost. As the days turned into weeks, John underwent a rigorous training regimen, both physical and mental. He learned to harness his enhanced abilities, to push his body and mind to their limits. He sparred with the greatest warriors of the Guardians, learning techniques and strategies from 100 different worlds. He delved into the mysteries of the universe, studying under the tutelage of the wisest sages. Through it all, one figure stood out, the architect, a being of immense knowledge and power who took a special interest in John's progress. Under the architect's guidance, John began to understand his true potential and the role he was to play in the battles to come. But as John's power grew, so too did his awareness of the threat they faced. The Void, he learned, was not just a force of destruction, but a sentient entity driven by an insatiable hunger to consume all in its path. The Guardians had managed to hold it at bay, but now they sensed a change in the winds. The Void was growing stronger, its influence seeping into the cracks of reality. John knew that the time for his final test was approaching, a mission that would take him into the very heart of the Void itself. He steeled himself for the battle to come, knowing that the fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. As he prepared for the mission, John's thoughts turned to his son, to the life he had left behind. He knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous, that he might never again set foot on the world he once called home. But he also knew that this was the path he was meant to walk, the destiny he had been chosen for. With a heavy heart but an unshakable resolve, John stepped into the swirling portal, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. For he was a guardian now, a champion of life and light, and he would not rest until the galaxy was safe, until the Void was vanquished and balance was restored. No matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.